Hello, I'm Kenza Gray, co-owner and curator of Grey Area Gallery, and welcome to our latest exhibition, Verdure. Verdure is a solo show of Mark Mann, who's a Norfolk-based multimedia artist. And in this show, we're exploring the complex interplay between queer love and desire and the sanctuary that can be built in a garden. In this exhibition, we see Mark draw on his three biggest influences to his artwork, which is queer histories, Greek mythology, and his love of nature. By bringing all three of these into this exhibition, it really is a showcase of the body of Mark's work. Mark is our longest running represented artist at Grey Area Gallery. Having been with us since our second exhibition, he's been involved in multiple group shows here, and we've also co-curated his solo show in Cambridge in the Museum of Classical Archaeology. When curating this exhibition, we knew that it was going to bring all of the aspects of Mark's work into one room. So we wanted to lay it out in a way that you could walk through and experience each part of Mark's interests and mediums in their own way, and yet bring the whole room together as one unified exhibition. Verdure came about through his love of nature. So Mark's studio is in his garden, and when he works, he is inspired by not just the queer histories and Greek mythology or queer interiors that his previous shows have exhibited, but also from his love of the natural world. When a visitor first enters this exhibition, they're confronted by a burst of colour. You're already able to smell the flowers and you can see elements of them popping around. The first thing that you see is the hyacinth stand in the centre here. And above it, you get the glimpse of the Beware the Sods triptych and this really bold wallpaper made from the repeat pattern that Mark has made with photographer Ewan Patron. We thought that this was a really central area to highlight all of the themes that this exhibition explores. So we're seeing queer desires, we're seeing this influence of nature, and yet we're seeing the modern and contemporary way in which Mark addresses these elements. The next element that we knew we wanted visitors to be greeted by upon their first entry is the poem written by James McDermott that we commissioned. So we were in conversation with James about the similarities between his poetry and Mark's artworks. And we commissioned him to write a poem inspired by Mark's works. Mark has then taken this poem and hand screen printed it on one of his textiles. It's a really beautiful poem, and it really draws upon the very gritty and undertones that we see in Mark's works. And James does this really beautifully. This piece is part of a limited series, with each one being unique and hand screen printed by Mark, with the one behind me being for sale, with part of the proceeds going to AKT, the National LGBTQ Homeless Youth Charity, to hopefully showcase the good work that they're doing and highlight a cause that Mark is passionate about. One element of this exhibition that I really think shocked visitors is the series of paintings behind me. These are a series of 9 paintings, oil on board, that are brand new for the exhibition Verdure. I think with the gallery, most people are used to seeing Mark's textile and ceramic artworks. It's what we've typically showcased of his artworks. So to bring in his painted elements was really great to see the responses that people were having to them. Although at first maybe not typically seen as Mark's works, they have every element that we see in his ceramics and his textiles. So we have the same love of nature, queer desire, and these undertones that are playing through. We even get some of his ceramics featuring in the pieces, and it was really great to showcase them alongside said pieces and show that all of the mediums in which he works influence each other and pull ties from his other inspirations, such as nature. Within the works, we see these pops of colour that are created by the flowers that are featured, and they're reflected by the flowers around the room and the other artworks. They just sit so beautifully as a line that was quite intrinsic to display them in that way, so that people could walk past them and look at each one and see how they're playing together, and yet they're so beautifully individual. One of my favourite pieces is this first piece here, Submerged Desires. A lot of people have been picking up on this work as the one that intrigues them the most. I think there's an element of the subject matter looking away, and yet we get this glimpse of his face. And obviously we have this element of the water rising up, and yet he's in a very calm and poised manner. Before we even had the artworks in for this exhibition, we knew that we wanted to bring natural elements into the space. So the original brief of this exhibition was that we were going to showcase Mark's love of nature and how this influences his works. Throughout the exhibition, you can see these beautiful floral arrangements, sometimes on their own, sometimes in a work, sometimes featured, like the one behind me, going across a piece to create a dynamic element. All of the flowers in here were brought from Mark's garden and his mother's garden. And on Friday morning before the opening, him, his two sisters and his mother came into the space and curated the flowers arrangements around. They bring a really organic feel to the work and really showcase the nature-inspired element of Mark's art. What's been really great is to put the flowers alongside pieces that have already been in the gallery, and it gave them a new lease of life, showing this energy that his pieces have when contrasted with the natural elements. But also just to have them in the space has made it really feel softened, and people have said alongside the bird sounds that we've had playing in the gallery that the flowers have really brought a peaceful element and just beautifully accentuated the artworks. Behind me, we feature the artwork in the middle, Desire's Reflection, which is a really clever work by Mark. So at first, it appears just as a beautifully thrown artwork, a stand for the flower above, but we've invited the viewers to look closer at the neck of the stand, and you can see the silhouettes of two faces looking at each other. So underneath, as we have done around the room, we've featured a brief explanation about the historical figures or the mythological figures that feature in Mark's work. And so here we've explained who Narcissus was. And the two faces featured in this artwork are reflecting the story of Narcissus. And it's been a really fun piece to see people engaging with and trying to see the faces. And I think that hopefully you'll see them in the video. Once you've seen them, it's very hard not to see it, and it's been a really popular work. Again, allowing people to engage with the pieces in a more dynamic way. Towards the end of the exhibition, we have this really striking wall, Beautiful Failure, Queer Fragments. This was first showcased in another variation at the Museum of Classical Archaeology, and since Mark has created mostly new works for this wall. So if you work with ceramics or have friends who do or know a bit about it, it is a very unpredictable medium, often featuring breakages or glazes not quite working in the correct way. And Mark noticed these elements of his practice, and instead of discarding the pieces, he kept them and wanted to showcase them as beautiful artworks in their own rights. And that's how the wall behind me has come about. So they are all actual happy mistakes that have happened in his practice. We may see a piece where a crack has featured or the bust has fallen in two pieces, and instead we now see them as whole works. What was really great on the exhibition evening was seeing people picking out their favourites or seeing how two could work together. And once again, I think that this shows a really dynamic element to Mark's works, and something that we're quite passionate about in Grey Area is showing mediums in a new way. So whether that be ceramics hanging from the ceiling or hanging on a wall, it's showing that these pieces can be incorporated in your home in a new way. It's not just a vase standing on the side. In the way that we laid out this wall, it has a museum feel to it. We've all been in certain institutions and seen these walls full of fragments from a past time with numbers, and you go to the side and you find out what culture it's from or what era it's from. And I think it's really great bringing in Mark's classical elements to display the pieces in this way. They do feel like fragments from a time before, or elements of natural fauna that have been found and preserved. What I also personally love about this wall is that it showcases all of the figures and all of the elements of Mark's works that he's most known for. So we feature Hyacinthus, we have Adonis's torso, or we have Antinous and Hadrian or Ganymede. It has all of the elements and figures that come through in other areas of Mark's works, all brought together in this beautiful display to end the exhibition. One area that was really fun when curating this exhibition was that we were able to play with the sculptural elements. Throughout the room, you'll see different areas where figures are looking at each other. This was the first one that we put in that way, and it's the two Ganymede jugs staring at each other across the room. We like the idea that visitors are encouraged to walk through them as if to break the connection that they're having. I hope that this has given you an insight into the exhibition Verdure. It's been a pleasure to welcome everyone into the space and to hear everyone's responses to the works. But if you were not able to make it in person, the exhibition catalogue will be available on our website, and you can always visit Mark's page on our website to see his works or past exhibitions. For now, we're closing the doors on Verdure, and thank you for watching the video.